Hi everybody, I'm Nino and Jafar, and that is Chespin playing Pokemon X on my 3DS. Now, you ask me, Nino, why is a Chespin plushie playing your game? The answer is that I suck at introducing cosplay videos. Long story short, I may in the near future begin to enter my cosplays in masquerades at conventions, so I kind of need to learn how to document the making of my costumes better. And so, you should now be able to conclude what cosplay I'll be filming the creation of. Chespin! So, without further ado, let's just jump right into this. Today's goal is going to be to make the hood, and the first step that I need to do for this is I need to make a pattern, so that way I know how to cut my fabrics. So what I find the best technique is to actually tape computer paper together until I have a big enough sheet. So here I am beginning to measure out what is going to be the center stripe of the hood. So this is going to run across the very top of my head from my forehead to the nape of my neck. And I seriously need to invest in an actual straight edge. Thankfully this didn't require precision, but still, I highly recommend you get a straight edge and not use a notepad or a folder. But after getting that initial line set up, I double-checked the length of it, and it ends up that it was actually just a little bit short, so I used some of the extra scraps that you see there to elongate it just a little bit. And now I'm ready to make the side panels, which once again I needed something a little bigger than a normal piece of computer paper for, so tape two of them together works just fine. What I did was I used the center stripe to figure out how I wanted the curve to go on the two side pieces. The straight sides are going to be the bottom and the front of the hood, and the curved side is going to connect to that stripe near the back of my head. So after kind of just touching it up a little bit, cut it out, and then we'll be ready to double check it with the stripe that I made, just, to make sure everything fits together. Right here I'm just really quickly marking how many pieces of each I'll need to make. So now I'm going to quickly make Chespin's little leaf things on the top of his head. Right now I only made 3 of them, but I may go back later and make a couple more. So basically what I did was I just kind of roughly estimated how big I wanted them to be, and here is our finished patterns. So what we'll do is we'll take these patterns over to the fleece and we'll get them cut out and ready to be sewn. Here we have my beautiful big sheet of green fabric. So what I did was I took my patterns and I laid them out and I cut them out. Most fabric comes folded in half, so when your patterns call for 2 pieces, it's actually surprisingly easy. So that's what I did here. I'm actually cutting out 2 of those pieces simultaneously. I did the same thing with Chespin's little leaf pieces, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew them together and then fold them inside out to make sort of like a pouch. So what I did was I just kind of eyeballed, cut them out into a circle, and then went in and cut out the individual leaf shapes after I got it away from the rest of the fabric. And now that we're ready to make that center stripe, which I only needed 1 of, I decided to open up the fabric because it was just a little bit too short for me to cut it out as it was. And so, just make sure you line it up, double check that your pattern's nice and flat on there. Definitely make sure that you pin your fabric to your pattern before you start cutting, because patterns will shift. And with that, we should have all of the fabrics that we need to make this hood, so we can take them to the sewing machine and stick them together. So now for possibly my favorite part of making costumes, the actual sewing of the pieces together. What I decided to do was start with the center stripe, and I just lined it up really carefully with the side panel, making sure that it matched up with the curved edge of it. Lots and lots of pins to hold it in place, and took it over to the machine. The big thing about sewing in a curve is to make sure that you just take it really slow and really careful. Curves are very, very easy to screw up if you let it. But, just take your time with it and you should be fine. So once I got that first side set up, I then took my piece over to my other piece and I lined up the other side of that center stripe with the curved edge on that one. And so by sewing these together, we should hopefully create a pretty good looking hood that will fit over my head nice and comfortably and kind of look like Chespin. So just really quick here trying it on because I love doing that with my costumes. As soon as it comes off the sewing machine, it's got to go on me so I can see how it looks. What I'm doing right here is I'm folding the edge, the outer edge of the hood over. With most fabrics, this is going to be a required step if you don't want your piece to fray and begin to fall apart. Fleece is a very interesting fabric, and it's part of the reason it's one of my favorite fabrics to work with, is that it doesn't fray. So if you don't finish your edges, it's not the end of the world. Your costume isn't going to start unraveling on you. But I like how it made the piece look, so I decided to fold over the edge anyway. Then I shifted over to quickly putting together the leaves that will go on Chespin's head. The idea here is that I did not sew the flat edge on the bottom because I'm going to flip the piece inside out so that when I make the wire skeleton for it, it will be able to slide over the skeleton just fine, and also the fact that it needed to get turned about, and it's kind of hard to do that when you seal it all together. But, just kind of sitting there making sure that the rounded edges got all set and ready to go. And so here are the completed pieces so far. Look at that. That's actually starting to look like a Chespin cosplay. I love it. So now we'll kind of shift gears to something completely different, and I think we'll work on that metal frame. Sorry, but you guys get to open up with a PSA moment here. I just want to make sure that you guys know to be very, very careful when working with wire. I know, you're like, really? Really, Nino? Really? Yeah. Pieces of metal do go flying when you do this, so please wear safety goggles and please wear gloves. And with that, let's watch me put on my safety glasses and not my gloves and get to work. Don't be like Nino. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to get a basic measurement for how much of the wire I'm going to need to make this frame. So after getting my measurement, just kind of trying the best that I can to eyeball it. It's not terribly important. I'm going to purposely make it big so that way I can just trim the edges when I'm all done. And so then we'll take the big coil and move it out of the way, and we're ready to begin shaping it. Deciding to start with the center of the metal, I started working on the middle leaf first, and as you can see, this is some pretty pliable wire. You do have to put some effort to get it to bend, but it can bend just by muscle strength alone. Unfortunately, I don't know what kind of wire this is, because like a couple years ago my brother got into chainmail making, and I kind of acquired his chainmail stuff. And that's where that wire came from, but if any of you happen to know what that is, that would be really awesome. So after bending the wire into shape, I decided to start lining it up with the headband so that I could begin to make the loops that are going to wrap around the headband and kind of help keep it in place. So once I kind of got that going how I wanted it to go, I began to, put it on the headband in order to bend it, and here I am trimming it. The big thing is you can always take away wire, but you can never really add wire comfortably. Once I knew that I had that pretty well lined up, I took those little needle nose pliers, and just kind of really made sure that I liked the shape of it. And so now that it is all set, hey, look at that, that's pretty good. We can go ahead and take it to the glue gun. Even though it was staying on pretty well, I just wanted to make sure that it was not going anywhere. So then I let the piece sit overnight, and in the morning I was ready to sew the actual cover onto the wire frame. So what I did is I just kind of put it on and got my thread all set up, and then I folded over the edges on top of each other and just kind of started looping them around. And so kind of the objective of this is that cover is not going anywhere. There's no reason for it to need to be removed, so there's no reason to give it the option to be moved. And so sewing it in place will just kind of keep it looking nice, kind of like the whole glue gunning it in. That piece isn't going anywhere. And then, just kind of a final checkup, see how it looks on my head. Oh, it's adorable. So that was the first part of me making my Chespin costume. The next part should come up pretty soon here, and I hope this was kind of enjoyable to watch, you know, something a little bit different. So talk to you guys soon.